The corporate press is the enemy of the people. There, I said it. Actually, Michael Malice said it. Trump used to say the press is the enemy of the people. I think that's what they claimed, but, I think he meant the fake news press. But either way, the corporate press is the enemy of the people. Say it along with me. The Daily Mail. Trump slams deceptively edited trailer for Piers Morgan interview and releases audio indicating that he did not storm out and instead ended the sit down with laughing and small talk. Oh, we got a hat trick for you, my friends. Piers Morgan put out a trailer where it's the most shocking interview with Donald Trump. And it shows Trump saying, "You're very dishonest." And then it shows him getting up saying, "Turn the camera off." When in reality, those were just snippets from throughout their discussion. Trump apparently had said, "You're dishonest," because I think it was kind of like in jest, because Piers would be like, one more question. He's like, "Oh, you're very dishonest," because he was saying one more question, but then asking more. That's all it was. And then at the end, Trump laughs and he says, "It was a great interview. Thank you." And he stands up. And as he's leaving, he's like, "Turn the camera off," which is normal because sometimes you want to just, there's interview stuff. And then maybe he wanted to say something like, "Hey, over at my house, we're doing this, that, or otherwise." Let me reiterate that. You're doing an interview. They say, "What are your policies? What are your plans?" Then when you're done, you say, "Turn the camera off. Hey, so tonight over at this place, we're going to be gathering for drinks. You don't want that stuff being recorded. You don't want it being put out." So that's apparently what Trump did. And they want to make money. They want to make money by making it seem that Trump is a hothead, making him look bad and getting everybody all riled up. But my friends, I told you we have a hat trick because we also have this amazing tweet from Politifact. John Levine tweets, "Don't believe your lying eyes." And he screen grabbed this from Politifact, everyone's favorite fact checker, that says, "You might have seen a clip of President Joe Biden shaking hands with thin air. It never happened. Here's the truth, as well as how misinformers manufacture and embellish embarrassing presidential moments." Let me I really want to revel in this one. You might have seen a clip of Joe Biden shaking hands with thin air. It never happened. Let me say that again. You might have seen it, but it didn't happen. That's amazing. Imagine walking down the street and a dog walks past you and they're like, "There's a dog." And then Politifact goes, "No, there wasn't." And you're like, I saw the dog. Stop trying to gaslight me. I saw the dog. Now, as I mentioned, the hat trick. Honorable mention to our good friends over at the Washington Post, who claimed that Taylor Lorenz of the Washington Post did not publish or link to any details about the private life of Chaya Raichik, who runs Libs of TikTok, which is an outright a lie. Majid Nawaz responding with false. The archived and original published article before the Washington Post removed it contained a link to Libs of TikTok's full name and personal address. You know what's really funny about this? Because I've harped on this quite a bit, but it's just I really want to make sure everybody knows. Everybody hears it. Not everybody watches every video I make, and you need to hear what they're trying to argue is that when the Washington Post linked to the real estate license of this individual, Chaya, the address listed just said contact address. It didn't say employer's address. But when you look up the LLC shares that address. And they said, "Oh, well, that proves that it's not her home address." No, it doesn't. But that's what they keep saying. Shout out Matt Binder, who keeps saying it. My simple response is, I don't have to prove why a business shares an address with a person. That's on you to disprove it's not her personal address. Housing public records on housing, not business, indicate the address is the personal home address. Now, Rebel News say they've vetted the same information as well. I can tell you we have documents that do not track business, tracks a person based on tax information, I believe, to locate their private address. Turns out that's the address the Washington Post linked to. I would say published. Why would an LLC be registered to someone's address? Several reasons. First, in New York, buildings are commercial residential splits, meaning the first floor is a business and the upper floors are apartments. That's normal all over the place. So the first floor can be the business and the upstairs can be where she lives. Why? I don't know. Maybe she got the job and said, "I'm looking for an apartment," and her boss was like, "Upstairs is available." And she went, "Wow, cool." I don't know how many people want to live upstairs from their work, but hey, no commute, right? I don't need to make up a reason why that's the case. The public records just say it. Hat trick. But let's talk about what's going on with this Piers Morgan thing. I'm going to play for you the audio. This is amazing. Piers Morgan, talk about deceptive. And they come after James O'Keefe on this stuff. Amazing. Donald Trump has released an audio recording that appears to refute an edited video clip that appeared to show him storming out of a sit-down interview with Piers Morgan. A 30-second trailer released on Wednesday depicted Trump abruptly ending the interview after Morgan challenged Trump's stolen election claims and ordering the crew to turn off the cameras as he gets up from the chair and storms off. Very dishonest, he mutters. But the audio recording provided by Trump's spokesman to NBC News indicates that the interview ended with the two men thanking each other for the great interview and laughing, with no sign of Trump storming off the set. They want to create this image of Trump. This is not the reality.
Okay, Piers, I'm ready.
Let me see if I can play this. It's really quiet. I don't know why it's so quiet. Let me play it.
Okay, Piers, I'm ready.
A former president in denial.
I'll be completely straight with you to your face.
I think I'm a very honest man. Much more honest than you, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
It was a free and fair election. You lost.
Only a fool would think
You
that.
think I'm a fool?
I do now, yeah.
With
Excuse
respect.
me.
Okay, with respect,
The
you haven't
legislature-
produced the hard evidence.
Excuse me.
The most explosive interview of the
I
year.
don't think you're real. This
I
is
realize
just
I'm not like-
very
I
dishonest.
just-
Let's finish up the interview.
Morgan versus
Turn the
Trump.
camera off. Very dishonest.
Only
They took audio. So if you could, it's kind of quiet, but they show Trump standing up and saying, turn the camera off. Very dishonest, making it seem like Trump stormed off. This was the news that went out. We almost covered it. We didn't, because I'm very wary of things like this. This story was in tons of papers where it's like, Trump storms off, and they released, let me see if I have to refresh this. They released audio, Donald Trump did, proving it's not true. Listen to this.
That is true.
Did you do that?
Probably happened. That probably happened because they own the club. I'm sure it happened.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for a great interview.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
That was a great interview. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was a great interview. The media is fake. This is what the world is. I don't care for it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the lies. There are people who live in a world, they live in the Matrix. And this is why the Washington Post, Taylor Lorenz thing really, really gets me out. Because I know, we've heard a lot about it, but this really is the crux of the problem. The perfect example, but also it is their Achilles heel, this story. The first story was that Taylor Lorenz put out the name of the creator of Libs of TikTok. I think that was wrong. The story is not served by revealing the person's name, revealing their background, like their motivations, maybe that they were at January 6th, all of that stuff, I think is absolutely important to understand the background of a person who's extremely influential, absolutely. But what does the name serve? I mean, what is nothing? So you can find out where they live or what? Taylor Lorenz also explained how to get their phone number very easily. It took me 2 seconds after. Thank you very much, Washington Post. They didn't link to it directly, so I'll make sure I issue that clarification because I was saying yesterday they linked to it. I was wrong, and I did put a correction on that. They didn't link to it. What they did was they said the phone number listed at this domain. So it's like, okay, I went on Google and typed in the domain, and then the phone number popped up. But they did link to the private personal address. And this is why it's important, because they're lying about it, and it's easy to prove they're lying about it. So my friends, let me just say, if you would like to explain to your friends and family how the media is lying, you need only this video. Maybe this is not the perfect video for it. Normally when I'm, when I want you to share it with someone to prove something, I'll include more. I didn't include my tweets where I show the links and everything because I've gone over it quite a bit. But first of all, I say go to timcast.com, become a member, help us fight back against this. Simply by supporting us as a media organization, we are building and challenging the corporate press and the lies. I don't think the answer in the culture war is just to tell everybody to abandon the content they like or, things like that. But we need to create alternatives. So support alternatives. Show this to your parents. Show this to your friends, your family, people who are like, show them the truth. It's Christine Corradi. She says they didn't link to any details. Fact check false. Majid Nawaz right there. Rebel News showing the link. You can click it right here. Check this out. Queen Josie of All the Liberty says, shot chaser. In the first story, they linked to her real estate license. In the second story, they removed it. They did do it, period. Now, let me show you this. Going back to the John Levine tweet, because this one is a real out of the park one. Share this one with anybody who's like, the media's not lying to me. I am not making any defenses of Trump's policy. I'm not making any defenses of Fox News. I think Tucker Carlson talking about sexy M&Ms was the stupidest thing ever. I think Tucker Carlson has had a ton of really weird segments because it seems like he just chases culture war stories for the sake of chasing them. Not always. I think he gets the facts right more often than not, but I don't agree with all of his opinions. The fact is, there's not a defense of anybody. This is a critique of the media and evidence they are lying to you. Politifact. You might have seen a clip of President Joe Biden shaking hands with thin air. It never happened. You saw it, but it didn't happen. You saw it. You might have seen it, but it didn't happen. What? What? What do you mean I watched? I watched it happen. And you're telling me it didn't happen? Do they think we're stupid? Do they think we have amnesia? Take a look at this. Here's the story from Politifact. President Joe Biden was confused, turned around and shook hands with thin air after his speech. Politifact says false. Now, what their argument is, at the end of his speech at North Carolina Agricultural Technical State University, Biden turned around and gestured towards the onlookers to his right, who rose to applaud him. He wasn't trying to shake hands with an imaginary person. Says who? It's an opinion. This is them fact-checking an opinion with an opinion and calling their opinion a fact. You don't know what Joe Biden was doing. Now, I try to be very careful when I explain this stuff. How about this? From the Telegraph. Joe Biden mocked for shaking hands with thin air after speech. Let me play it for you. He speaks, then he looks down at the floor, turns to his right, and then holds out his hand as if to shake, and then spins around, points. Now, as I often say with all of these stories, I don't know exactly what he's doing. I think it's possible he may be hallucinating. Friends, have you ever driven your car late at night when you were tired and hallucinated? It happened to me before. It actually happened a lot. You're really drowsy, you're sleepy, and then you're trying to stay awake and you start hallucinating things. People seem to think they have this movie-esque depiction of what a hallucination is, that you see a vivid, crystal clear image of like a man walking up to you and smiling. Hallucinating can just be that everything's kind of blurry, you're really tired, and your brain doesn't process information right. You see a shadow or some lump or something, and then you're like, is that a person? And you reach out your hand. That's what it means. Joe Biden did this. Were there people standing? Of course there's people standing there. Here's what's happening. How often is it that a leader turns to their right and holds out their hand after speaking? What is the most likely scenario here? In my opinion, in the absence of evidence, the solution with the least amount of assumptions tends to be correct. Joe Biden has said things like next now recent, Batacaf care, and true in Shabbat pressure. Shabbat pressure. I try to transcribe what he's saying. He's muttered, stumbled, sputtered, whatever. Those things have happened. Considering that in this speech, Joe Biden falsely claimed that he was a full professor at the University of Pennsylvania, despite never teaching a class there, it is safe to assume in the context, making the least amount of assumptions, is that Joe Biden is having some kind of episode. He claimed he was a professor. He wasn't. Is he just lying? Don't want to call him a liar. I think he's just fading. And afterwards, he turns to his right and he's like, reaches out his hand and there's nobody there. What Politifact is trying to argue is that when you look at a different angle, it looks like he's pointing to the audience. Pointing with your hand open like you're ready to shake someone's hand? No, he turned later and he pointed with a single finger. That I can believe. Pointing at somebody. But they're like, in the C-SPAN video of the entire speech, you can see he was gesturing to the audience as they stood to applaud. Why? Why? You have to make assumptions to believe that Joe Biden was gesturing to the audience as they applauded. Because why would he do that? To be fair, you have to make assumptions to believe that Joe Biden was trying to shake hands with thin air. That's why I take a more light approach. I don't just say that, he did. I say, I believe, or in my opinion, because it's all we're really talking about is opinions. I don't know. But when Joe Biden says he's a full professor at a university, is he lying? He may be, or he just may be having an episode. He's not remembering things properly. For what reason would someone finishing a speech turn to the audience and gesture to them. To do what? To leave? They were already standing and applauding. He wasn't waving to them. He was holding out his hand. In which case, I say this. Why would someone, after finishing a speech, turn to their right and hold out their hand to shake someone's hand? Well, actually, that happens quite a bit. Someone will speak, and then they'll turn to their right, and an aide or the VP or someone will come up and they'll shake hands, and that happens all the time. What doesn't happen all the time is a leader finishes his speech and then just aims his hand like a judo chop towards the audience. I don't understand why he would do that. That's Politifact for you. The best part is when they say on Twitter, you may have seen the clip, but it never happened. You may have seen the clip, but it never happened. What? They could have said, you may have seen the clip where Joe Biden was accused of trying to shake hands with thin air. While Joe Biden did raise his hand and make this gesture, it is likely he was doing something else. But then you're just talking about opinions. And that's probably why they said it never happened. Because the goal of Politifact is to gaslight you. Of this post, at least, it's to gaslight you. It never happened. You didn't see it. Go back to sleep. I'm just sick of the lies. I'm sick of the lies. I have no problem saying, in my opinion, I believe Joe Biden is cognitively impaired, saying things like Trinidad Shabbat pressure, Batacaf care, next Nel Rescent. He said that. Batacaf care. And then they say, well, he has a stutter. Go watch videos of Joe Biden from 10 years ago. He ain't got a stutter. Maybe he had a stutter when he was a kid. Now that he's older, it's coming back fine. But he's slurring. He's slurring. Let me slow it down for you. They try to lie about it. You know why they don't say he's slurring? Because it's a sign of cognitive impairment, which would play along with him trying to shake hands with thin air. It could be that he wasn't hallucinating. It could be that he is just a bumbling, confused old man who is beyond the average life expectancy for the standard American male. And this is what you get. The press does everything in their power to give the benefit of the doubt to Democrats, and they do everything to malign Republicans. Not every Republican, many of them. Typically, it's for the Democratic establishment. And over the past several years, it's mostly having to do with the fact that populists have been taking over politics. But let's think about this for 2 seconds. Joe Biden does insane things, and the media crawls backwards over glass, desperate to defend whatever it was. When Joe Biden says something like, Trinidad Shabbat pressure, the media doesn't cover it. When Joe Biden says something insane, even conservative media will come out with a quote, and they'll come out and they'll fix his quote. So Joe Biden will say something like, you know, I was in France and speaking with Macron. Got to strengthen our defenses. He'll say it like that. What will the media put? In quotes, it'll say, I was in France speaking with Macron about our defenses. They will put it in quotes, or they'll just paraphrase. No, a true quote should have all the ums, ah, ees, ooh. Joe Biden will say things, and I guess for the sake of trying to explain it to people, they'll not write what he actually said and just translate for Bidenese, as people call it. With Donald Trump, he'll say something like, you know, we had a really great year in 2019, great numbers, a great economy. And then they'll say, instead of quoting Trump, they'll say, Trump falsely claimed that the economy was doing well during his presidency. They won't tell you what he said. They'll just... The media, they're gatekeepers through which the lens of reality is distorted. And what they do next, these smaller creators, these smaller influencers who are intent on lying to you, people like Matt Binder, shout out. We'll have him on the show. I think he's just a liar. And he plays this, they're tribalists. Their goal is to defend the tribe at all costs, the Democratic establishment and their wing of politics. I do not care about the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or anybody. I care about calling out people who are lying. I have no problem saying that Donald Trump is completely wrong about his election claims. Oh, no. And then the Trump supporters get mad at me and the left is like falsely claiming that I believe Trump or that I agree with him. It's just so stupid because they need to have this fake ideology. They have to lie. Tim Pool claims the big lie, blah, blah, blah. No, I didn't. I've never done that. I think Trump lost, and I think when it comes to Trump's claims, it is the Achilles heel of the Republicans. They genuinely think they lost because of some big nefarious scheme they can't prove. Certainly there are questions and there are weird happenings. I can agree with that. There's also lies. And instead of just saying that Trump was deeply unpopular and the enthusiasm against Trump was nearly as high as the enthusiasm for him, and we were in a pandemic and people were going nuts, they just say, oh, it must have been a scheme or something. Nah, that's wrong. But this is what you get. The left will tell you, they'll gaslight you. Matt Bender, I bring him up because he'll say they didn't publish any private address, and then they engage in sophistry and deflection. When I say, okay, let's just say the address was Libs' work address. Well, change the subject, move the goalposts. Taylor Lorenz published the address, period, end of story. Now, it turns out it was the private home address and work address of the individual. Explain that one to me. It's not my job. Public records say it was both. That makes sense. Sometimes people work from home. Sometimes LLCs are registered to homes. I don't need to explain that. You need to explain it. You can't just say, well, I know public records do show this as her private address, but I'm going to say it's not because she also has it as her work address. Sorry, that's not evidence. You're just lying. You're gaslighting because their goal is not to inform you. Their goal is to make sure your worldview is skewed and broken so that they can manipulate you and lie to you to gain political power. Shout out to Jared Holt, who also published a huge fat lie, makes things up, publishes false statements of fact. He writes a story insinuating that I claimed there were U.S. bioweapons labs. It's just another lie. It's funny because anybody who actually watches my show knows that I don't engage in the same rhetoric as the right, but I engage in what is true. And because reality has a conservative bias these days, the left must claim that I support the lies coming from right-wing figures or the misconceptions. No, I don't. But to be fair, Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard, it's my understanding, didn't say there were U.S. bioweapons labs either. They just make that up and then lie because they are evil people. I look forward to having them on my show so I can just pull up these articles and be like, hey, that's a lie. That's just not true. What are you going to say about it? It'll be fun and funny. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.